When you wake up in the morning, Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself, "Tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly." He wrote this not as a cynic, but as a realist preparing his mind for the chaos of the Roman court. But what happens when that meddling, that dishonesty, doesn't come from a stranger or a competitor, but from within the four walls of your own home, from your own blood? There is a pervasive modern myth that forgiveness is a universal cure-all, that, to be a good person, you must offer endless grace, turn the other cheek, and let bygones be bygones. This is a dangerous and naive philosophy. It is a philosophy that leaves the gates to your inner citadel, your peace of mind, wide open for attack. The Stoics were not naive. They were pragmatists, strategists of the mind who understood that, while we do not control the actions of others, we have an absolute duty to control our response and, most importantly, to protect ourselves. Betrayal, from a Stoic perspective, is not merely an emotional wound. It is a violation of reason, a breach of the natural order of trust that binds a family together. It is an act that reveals a fundamental flaw in another's character. And while you can choose to release your own anger, which is a form of forgiveness, you are under no obligation to allow that flawed character back into your life. Some actions are not mistakes, they are choices that reveal a person's core. Recent studies suggest that over 60% of adults have experienced a significant family betrayal. This isn't a rare occurrence, it is a common human tragedy. The question is not if it will happen, but how you will respond when it does. Today, we are not here to talk about petty squabbles or holiday arguments. We are here to forge an iron mind. We will dissect the 5 family betrayals that are so corrosive, so contrary to reason and duty, that they demand the creation of permanent, unbreachable boundaries. This is not about revenge. Revenge is the act of an emotional reactor. This is about logic, self-preservation, and the deliberate construction of a life where you are the architect of your own tranquility. This is the Stoic blueprint for responding to the unthinkable. The first betrayal is perhaps the most insidious because it is designed to make you question your own sanity. It is emotional manipulation and gaslighting. This isn't a simple disagreement. This is a deliberate campaign to distort your reality for someone else's benefit. It's the parent who says, "I never said that. You're being too sensitive," after making a deeply cutting remark. It's the sibling who frames their cruelty as just a joke and makes you the villain for getting upset. Gaslighting is a poison of the mind. Its purpose is to erode your confidence in your own perceptions, making you easier to control. The Stoics held truth and clear judgment as cardinal virtues. An attempt to deliberately cloud your judgment is therefore one of the highest offenses against reason. I mentored a young man, a brilliant software engineer who had developed a groundbreaking app. He was on the cusp of securing his first round of funding. But every time he spoke to his older brother, he would leave the conversation feeling small, confused, and insecure. His brother would say things like, "Are you sure you're cut out for this? You've always been a bit of a dreamer. Remember how you quit the soccer team?" Or, "I was talking to an investor friend, and he said, 'Your idea is a decade too late. I'm just looking out for you.'" He wasn't looking out for him. He was planting seeds of doubt, a subtle sabotage born of envy. The gaslighting was so effective that my client began to believe it himself, almost backing out of the most important meeting of his life. The philosopher Seneca taught that we should live in accordance with nature, and our nature is to be rational beings. Gaslighting is an assault on that rationality. It is an attempt to rewrite the truth. So, what is the iron mind response? It is not to argue. Arguing with a gaslighter is like wrestling in the mud. You both get dirty, but only they enjoy it. The response is a 3-part strategy. First, document. Write it down. When an incident happens, record the date, the time, and exactly what was said. This is not for them, it is for you. It is an anchor to reality. When you feel your memory being questioned, you can look at your journal and say, "No, this is what happened. My perception is valid. Second, detach. You must emotionally disengage. See their words not as a reflection of you, but as a reflection of their own insecurity and desire for control. View them as a scientist views a specimen. Interesting, perhaps, but not personally affecting. Third, set information boundaries. This is critical. The manipulator uses the information you give them as ammunition, so you stop giving it to them. Put them on an information diet. They don't need to know about your career ambitions, your new relationship, or your financial wins. Your life becomes a black box to them. Ask yourself this: who in your life makes you consistently question your own reality? Is their help actually a form of control designed to keep you small? Recognizing this isn't an act of accusation, it's an act of profound self-preservation. The second betrayal cuts to the very bone of trust and security. It is financial exploitation and theft. Notice, I do not say lending money that isn't returned. We are talking about something far more deliberate: the calculated abuse of trust for personal gain. This is the sibling who forges a signature on a loan document, the parent who drains a joint savings account meant for a grandchild's education, the cousin who borrows a valuable family heirloom and sells it. These acts are not about money. A Stoic understands that money, possessions, and property are externals, things outside of our direct control. As Epictetus taught, we should be indifferent to their loss. However, the act of theft from a family member is not an external. It is a revelation of character. The issue is not the loss of the possession, but the loss of the person you thought you knew. The violation of your dignity and the calculated decision to prioritize greed over kinship is the true wound. Early in my career, long before I had built my primary company, I went into a small tech venture with a close relative. We were building something innovative. I handled the technology, he handled the finances. For 2 years, we poured everything we had into it. Then I discovered he had been systematically creating false invoices and siphoning funds into a private account. The amount was significant, enough to cripple the company. When I confronted him, there was no remorse, only resentment that he had been caught. My initial reaction was rage. I felt the hot sting of personal betrayal, but as I worked through it, I began to see it through a different lens. The money was gone. That was a fact. Getting angry wouldn't bring it back. The business was gone. Another fact. But what did I control? My response. The iron mind response to financial exploitation is not emotional. It is methodical and absolute. First, you create unyielding legal and financial boundaries. You sever all joint accounts. You remove them from any power of attorney. You consult with a lawyer to understand your rights and reclaim what you can. This is not about punishment. It is about protecting yourself from further harm. You would not leave your front door open after a robbery, so why would you leave your financial door open to someone who has proven themselves a thief? Second, you offer no second chances. This is where modern sentimentality fails us. People will say, "But he's family." The Stoics would reply, "His actions have been those of an enemy, not of family." A person who is willing to steal from their own blood has a fundamental character defect. To trust them again with your resources is not an act of forgiveness, it is an act of foolishness. You are inviting a repeat performance. You must accept the harsh reality of who they have shown themselves to be, not who you wish they were. Reflect on this. Are you enabling someone's financial irresponsibility out of a misplaced sense of duty? Where does support and an exploitation begin? The line must be drawn in concrete, not sand. The third betrayal is a quiet venom, a slow-acting poison that can cripple your potential over a lifetime. It is the act of actively sabotaging your growth and success. This is the family that resents your ambition. It's the parent who, upon hearing you've been promoted, says, "Well, don't let it go to your head. Remember where you come from." It's the sibling who constantly minimizes your achievements, framing your disciplined hard work as luck or an obsession. This is not constructive criticism. It is not tough love. It is a psychological anchor, an attempt to keep you in a box that is comfortable for them. Why does this happen? Often, your growth illuminates their stagnation. Your success becomes a mirror in which they see their own fears and failures, and instead of being inspired, they choose to shatter the mirror. I worked with a woman, a brilliant executive in her 40s who decided to leave a lucrative corporate job to start her own consulting firm. It was her lifelong dream. Her family's reaction was brutal. Her parents told her she was being irresponsible, throwing away a good job for a fantasy. Her sister told her that most new businesses fail and constantly sent her articles about failed entrepreneurs. They weren't concerned, they were threatened. Her decision to pursue a life of meaning and purpose was an indictment of the safe and unfulfilling choices they had made. They were trying to pull her back into the crab bucket, because if she succeeded, what would that say about their own lack of courage? Marcus Aurelius famously said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." He trained himself to see obstacles not as barriers, but as fuel. When your own family becomes the obstacle, you must apply this principle with ruthless precision. Their negativity, their doubt, their sabotage, that is the very thing you must use to strengthen your resolve. Their resistance is the weight you must lift to build your mental muscle. The iron mind response requires a strategic separation of your journey from their judgment. The first step is to limit sharing. Your dreams are precious and fragile in their early stages. Do not offer them up for critique to those who have proven they are not on your side. Celebrate your wins with your mentors, your partners, and your true supporters. To the saboteurs, you become polite, distant, and uninformative. When they ask how your business is going, the answer is always calm and simple. It's going well, thank you. No more, no less. You are not obligated to provide them with data they will only weaponize against you. Second, you must mentally separate your journey. You must internalize the truth that their reaction is about them, not you. It is a broadcast of their fears, their envy, and their limitations. It has no bearing on your potential or your path. Your duty is to your own directing mind, as Epictetus would say. You have a purpose. Their approval is not a prerequisite for pursuing it. Their sabotage is merely noise from the cheap seats. You are the one in the arena. Ask yourself, whose approval are you still seeking? And is the price of that approval your own growth? At some point, you must be willing to disappoint others in order to be true to yourself. We now arrive at a betrayal that is not open to interpretation or debate. It is an absolute, a line that, once crossed, dissolves all obligation of kinship. This is the fourth betrayal, the violation of a child's physical or emotional safety. This is the darkest territory. This is the family member who harms a child, who allows a child to be harmed through negligence, or who exposes a child to profound psychological or physical danger. There are no shades of gray here. The Stoic concept of oikeiosis speaks of our natural duty and affinity, starting with ourselves and extending outwards in concentric circles, to our children, our family, our community, and humanity. The innermost circle, the protection of one's own children, is the most sacred and primary duty. It is a law of nature. To violate this is to act in a manner more base than a wild animal, which will defend its young to the death. I will not share a personal story here, as these wounds belong only to the victims. Instead, I will speak from the foundation of the philosophy itself. In Roman society, from which Stoicism flourished, the pater familias, the head of the family, had an absolute duty, a potestas, to protect everyone in his household. It was his highest responsibility. A failure to protect the vulnerable, especially the children, was seen as the greatest possible dereliction of duty, bringing shame and ruin upon his name. This wasn't just a social custom, it was understood as a bedrock principle of a functional, civilized society. Any person who threatens the safety of a child forfeits their right to be part of that society, and most certainly forfeits their right to be part of your family. The iron mind response in this instance is not a strategy, it is a reflex. It must be immediate, unequivocal, and permanent. First, immediate and total no contact. The person is excised from your life and your child's life. Instantly. There are no conversations, no mediations, no chances for an apology. An apology is irrelevant. The act itself is the only piece of information you need. You sever the limb to save the body. Any hesitation is a betrayal of your primary duty as a protector. You become an unbreakable wall between your child and the source of harm. Second, involve external authorities. This is not a family matter to be handled quietly. Matters of child safety are matters for the law. You report the individual to the police or child protective services. You do this not for revenge, but for two logical reasons: to ensure the person is held accountable by society and, more importantly, to prevent them from harming other children. Your duty extends beyond just your own child to the children of the community. To conceal such a crime makes you complicit in their future crimes. The reflective question here is not for you, but for society. At what point did we become so confused by the rhetoric of unconditional forgiveness that we began to apply it to the monstrous? Your duty here is not to forgive. Your duty is to protect. It is the one role in which you must never, ever fail. The fifth and final betrayal is an attack on the very essence of who you are. It is not an attack on your possessions or your physical safety, but on your character itself. This is spreading malicious lies and character assassination. This is the relative who, consumed by jealousy or spite, concocts and spreads damaging rumors about you within the family or the community. They whisper about your integrity as a parent, your fidelity as a partner, or your honesty in business. Their goal is to isolate you, to damage your reputation, and to turn others against you. A reputation, for the Stoic, is a preferred indifferent. It's nice to have, but it's ultimately external and outside our control. However, our character is the one thing that is entirely our own. An attack like this is an attempt to paint a false picture of your character in the minds of others, to steal your good name. I once advised a man who was going through a contentious divorce. His ex-wife's sister, with whom he had always had a difficult relationship, began a systematic campaign to ruin him. She told other family members that he had been hiding assets. She told friends in their community that he had a secret gambling problem. None of it was true. It was a vicious, calculated assault designed to poison the well and ensure he was ostracized from the social circles they once shared. He was devastated. His first instinct was to fight back, to call everyone he knew and defend himself, to post his side of the story online, to engage in the mudslinging. I urged him to follow the counsel of Seneca, who faced similar attacks throughout his life in the court of Nero. Seneca advised that the best response to slander is to live a life that makes the lies unbelievable. To argue is to give the lie credence. To defend yourself frantically is to appear guilty. The powerful response, the iron mind response, is to let your actions be your only defense. The first step is to refuse to participate in the drama. You do not call the rumor monger to confront them. You do not send angry texts. You do not engage third parties to plead your case. You starve the fire of the oxygen it craves. Your silence and your calm are infuriating to the person who wants a reaction. Your peace becomes your power. The second step is to focus relentlessly on your own character. You double down on being an excellent father, a reliable friend, and an honest professional. You live with such integrity that when people hear the rumors, a seed of doubt is planted not about you, but about the person spreading them. Over time, character always reveals itself. The slanderer will eventually be seen for what they are, a bitter and untrustworthy person. The truth, like a mighty river, eventually carves its way through any landscape of lies. Your job is not to force the river's path, but to simply be the rock of integrity it flows around. So ask yourself this: are you more concerned with what people say about you, or with the person you actually are. Your character is your fortress. Tend to its walls, and the arrows of slander will eventually fall harmlessly at its base. We have walked through 5 territories of betrayal: the mind games of emotional manipulation, the violation of financial exploitation, the corrosive envy of sabotaging your growth, the unforgivable sin of violating a child's safety, and the poison of character assassination. These are not minor transgressions. They are fundamental breaches of the duties of kinship, reason, and respect. And the response required is not one of weakness, but of strength. The Stoic path is often misunderstood as one of passive acceptance. It is not. It is a path of radical accountability, first and foremost for yourself. It is your duty to protect your mind, your tranquility, and your ability to live a virtuous life. Let us be perfectly clear on the distinction between forgiveness and boundaries. Forgiveness, in the Stoic sense, is an internal act. It is the letting go of your own anger, resentment, and desire for revenge, because you recognize that these emotions harm you more than anyone else. You can forgive someone from 1,000 miles away and never speak to them again. Forgiveness is for your peace. Boundaries, on the other hand, are an external act. They are the logical, practical walls you build to protect yourself from further harm. Forgiveness does not mean reconciliation. It does not mean you must grant access to your life to someone who has proven they will abuse it. To do so is not virtuous, it is self-destructive. Building a boundary is the ultimate act of self-respect. It is the statement that says, I will control what is within my power to control, and that includes who has the privilege of being in my life. Your inner citadel cannot be breached from the outside unless there is a traitor on the inside. That traitor is often a misplaced sense of obligation, a fear of confrontation, or a naive hope that a fundamentally flawed person will change. The iron mind is built by ejecting these traitors. It is built by seeing people for who they have shown themselves to be, not who you wish they were. It is built by taking decisive, logical action to preserve your own well-being. This is not cold. This is the highest form of wisdom. I leave you with this final question to guide your practice. Which betrayal have you experienced, and what is one boundary you can build today to begin fortifying your inner citadel? Share your thoughts below, not for sympathy, but to declare your commitment to building an unbreakable mind.